Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3835 AM. Today's date is February 8th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Trump is moving all the pieces around the board to free the people from economic enslavement. The problem? You never know the full story until after. After, it's too late. And here's the brutal truth. You can't protect yourself after. You have to be ready now. All this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just noise. Maybe it's just the beginning of something bigger. Nobody knows for sure, but waiting to find out, that's how people get hurt. Physical gold and silver aren't just investments, they're preparation. They're the foundation of real protection. My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans protect themselves for nearly a decade. No pressure, no games, just proven insight when it matters most. Look, you're either prepared or you're not. Which one will you be when everything changes overnight? Visit X22Gold.com to receive your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. And remember, the prepared don't panic, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum. You can see that Powell now, he's panicking. The reporters have been asking him about gold, and he's trying to deflect from all of this. And he's trying to making it seem like it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't really mean anything if gold is moving up in price. It doesn't mean that the fiat currency is failing. It doesn't mean that something is happening. And of course, this is what the central bank has been trying to convince people for a very long time. This is why they have the paper market, and this is why they keep the illusion alive. Because if people realized what was really going on, people would say, why am I holding on to these pieces of paper? So as their system fails, they need to make you believe that it isn't. And it's very, very clear when you start to look at inflation, and you start to look at inflation in a different way. When you look at inflation on how many ounces of gold it takes to purchase the same item, I believe at that point it becomes very, very clear that the fiat currency has lost almost all of its value. Now, we're going to be talking a lot more about this a little bit later in this report, but you can see what Trump is doing right now. He's moving all the pieces around the board to do what? To set it up so he can remove us from the economic enslavement. And remember, the central bank has been in existence since 1913. Remember, it's the third one in this country. And we went full fiat in the 70s. So since the 70s, they've put a lot of things into place to make sure that no one removes their system and brings us back to sound money. But you can see every step of the way, Trump has a plan, and he's following the plan to remove the central bank system, just like he removed the entire climate agenda. I mean, really think about this. We had the deep state players, Biden, Obama, Clintons, you name it, going way back in time. They were always pushing the climate agenda. Trump came in and said, yeah, this is all fake. We're not pushing this. The earth is going to get cooler. We're going to have cold. We're not going to have warmth. And this is exactly what's happening right now. And you can see the fake news. They're trying to figure all of this out and try to explain to the people why this is happening and why we're experiencing this now. Chris Martz put this out and said, I just can't stop laughing. Just 2 years ago, the New York Times said that the mild winter weather has the fingerprints of human-caused climate change all over the world. But this year, the New York Times has changed their tune. Cold winters are also proof of climate change. So basically, when you look at the articles, it's absolutely ridiculous. And this is why they decided to go away from global warming, because they knew the entire earth was going to cool down because the sun is controlling all of this. And they knew that we were moving into a different phase, and this phase was going to be colder. And again, the climate always changes, but it has nothing to do with humans. And this is where it all falls apart. This is where their entire argument completely collapses. And this is why Trump, from the very beginning, said, we are removing ourselves from the Paris Climate Accord. We're removing ourselves from anything that has to do with carbon credits, their climate agenda, the Green New scam, all of it. It's all now falling apart around them. And yes, Trump moved pieces around the board to get rid of what they're trying to do. Some things are a little bit easier than others. Actually, the central bank is a little bit more tougher to get rid of, because you have to remember the central bank is the heart of the deep state system. and they don't want that system to end. So they'll protect that system at all costs. Everything else is an offshoot of the main system. So yeah, they might lose the Green New Scam, but they can never, ever allow Trump to come in and basically restructure the central bank system and actually get rid of that. And they will protect that at all costs. It doesn't mean they're going to win. In the end, it's all going to fail around them. And think about what Trump has been doing. He's been setting up the entire country, preparing it so we can support ourselves without borrowing the currency. That's what we're witnessing right now. And every step of the way, what is he doing? He's bringing jobs back, lowering the fuel costs, bringing industry back, just like out in Maine. And he's doing this on purpose to set everything up. This is what he put out on Truth. Another big win for Maine and all the New England. Hard to believe you vote for Democrats who did this to you, but not for Trump, who gets you out of the environmental and economic malaise. Vote Republican from now on. For too long, the radical left has put burdensome and unnecessary restrictions on everything, including our great American fishermen. In my first term, I reversed the prohibitions placed on commercial fishing, but Joe Biden, or whoever was using the auto pen, foolishly reinstated them since day one. I have taken historic action to end these disastrous policies, and today I signed a presidential proclamation to unleash commercial fishing in the Atlantic Ocean, advancing the American First fishing policy. I am restoring nearly 5,000 square miles of fishing access off the coast of New England, which will revitalize our fishing industry and strengthen our booming economy. Congratulations to all our great fishermen. Please remember, I did this for you. Again, strong Democratic opposition, and vote Republican in the midterms, President Donald J. Trump. And every step of the way, if you notice what Trump is doing right now, he's preparing for the midterms. He's making the economy great, bringing back industry, lowering the fuel costs, bringing back manufacturing, creating a lot of jobs. Wages are going up. All of this is to win the midterms because he needs the win, and he needs the Patriots in the House and the Senate to move to the next part of the plan. And the next part of the plan is to do what? It's to get rid of the central bank system for once and for all. And think about what the deep state, the central bankers, and the fake news have done for a very long time. To make you think the economy was doing fantastically well, what did they do? They always look to the stock market. If the stock market is up, that means the economy is doing well. Actually, if you go back to 2008, 2009, they always pointed to the stock market. Well, the stock market's up, so the economy must be doing well, even though in the background, the economy was completely and utterly falling apart. Now, if you look at what's happening today, Trump is using that against them, and they're trying to convince everyone, even though the market's up, the economy's not that great. But think about what happened in 2008, 2009. They kept everyone looking at the market, even though in the background, the entire economic system was completely and utterly imploding on itself. And then eventually what happened is all of a sudden we're in a recession, and everyone, how did this happen? We can't explain it. But if you look back in time, you understand how it happened. They just hid it from you. Now, the opposite's happening. Trump is using the stock market against them, saying, look at the market. It's at 50,000. I was able to do this. They said it was going to take forever, maybe by my last year in my presidential term. Maybe it would happen, but he did it way before that. In the background, you know what's happening to the economy? No, it's not imploding. It's getting stronger. It's building. And Trump is putting everything into place. This is what he put out on Truth. The experts said that if I hit 50,000 on the Dow by the end of my term, I would have done a great job. But I hit 50,000 today, 3 years ahead of schedule. Remember, that for the midterms, because the Democrats will crash the economy. Again, for the midterms. And you can see that Powell, he is panicking right now because people are starting to realize, and we knew this was going to actually end up happening, that gold prices are starting to move up. Now, you have to remember, the central bankers, the deep state players, they will try to control the alternative currencies, actually the true currencies. That's what we should really call it. They will try to control Bitcoin. They will try to control gold. They will try to control silver. A lot of times when they bring it down is they see the writing on the wall, and there's many big hitters that want to get into it, and they want to get in at a very, very cheap price. So this is why they usually do it. The other is to show you that, hey, you don't want to be investing. They don't want the masses to take their currency and move it into gold, move it into Bitcoin, or move it into silver. And when Powell was being asked questions about gold prices, The problem? You never know the full story until after. After it's too late. And here's the brutal truth. You can't protect yourself after. You have to be ready now. All this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just noise. Maybe it's just the beginning of something bigger. Nobody knows for sure, but waiting to find out, that's how people get hurt. Physical gold and silver aren't just investments. They're preparation. They're the foundation of real protection. My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans protect themselves for nearly a decade. No pressure, no games, just proven insight when it matters most. Look, you're either prepared or you're not. Which one will you be when everything changes overnight? Visit X22Gold.com to receive your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. And remember, the prepared don't panic, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. He's letting everyone know that it's not that big of a deal. It really has nothing to do with the economy, and you shouldn't really be worried about that. You see, people are starting to wake up. People are starting to ask questions. Why is gold moving up so quickly? Something doesn't make sense. Is this normal? Is there something wrong with the currency? Is something wrong with what you've been doing? Are you lying to us? So I do believe as time goes on and gold starts to move up much, much higher, which I do believe is going to happen, well, it looks the Federal Reserve is going to be in a lot of trouble. But just take a listen to what Powell said and listen to how worried he is.
Significant price increases we've seen for precious metals.
Don't take much message macroeconomically. The argument can be made that we're losing credibility or something. It's simply not the case. If you look at where inflation expectations are, our credibility is right where it needs to be. So we look at those things. We don't get spun up over particular asset price changes, although we do monitor them, of course.
So he let you know that don't worry about gold. It doesn't really reflect anything. Don't worry about it. I remember going back in time, back to 2000, I think it was like 7 or 8 or something like that, maybe a little bit earlier than that, when we had questions being asked to Bernanke. And basically, he was asked about gold, and he said it was a barbarous relic. It's meaningless. We just keep it because, we've done it throughout history, and it really doesn't mean anything. But again, that was a lie because they don't want the people of the world to understand how important it is, because their currency is devaluing very, very quickly. And when people look at inflation and they say, hey, look, price of apples are going up. Oh, look, price of clothing's going up. Oh, look, price of this is going up. It's not those items that are going up. It's the value of the currency that's declining. And I think Sam and Bobby Thorne do a very good job in explaining this to make it easier to understand. And one individual, Sam, takes it from the perspective of the actual Federal Reserve note. So we'll start with there, and Bobby Thorne, he takes it from the perspective from gold. So in 1971, the year Nixon took the dollar off the gold, the houses were $25,000. Now average price is $410,000. A car back in 1971 was $3,560. Now the average price of a car is $48,000. Harvard back in 1971 was $2,600 a year. Now it's $57,000 a year. Gas was 36 cents a gallon. Now it's $2.88 a gallon. Average income went from $10,000 to $60,000. Everything got 8 to 22 times more expensive. Wages only went 6 times. So think about that for a second. So you just saw that from the perspective of the Federal Reserve note, which people call the U.S. dollar, but it's really not the U.S. dollar. It really is a Federal Reserve note. We have to borrow it from the Federal Reserve, and for us borrowing and using their currency, they charge us interest. And that's what you see around the globe where you're seeing inflation, because you have to continually borrow and borrow and borrow, which puts more and more currency into circulation, which devalues the currency. When you look at it from a different perspective, like Bobby Thorne, where he's looking at it from gold, I think it becomes clear of how much the currency has lost value. He says you only see inflation because you price it in dollars. Though, what if we price these things in gold instead? The price of an ounce of gold in 1971 was $41 an ounce. By the way, our gold in our vaults are still valued at $41 an ounce. But right now, gold is close to $5,000. So we'll just round it off and say it's $5,000. What that means is that when priced in terms of gold and using the dollar prices you mentioned, a 1971 house back then cost 614 ounces of gold. Think about that for a second. 614 ounces of gold because it was priced at $41 an ounce. Now that it's $5,000 an ounce, you only need 82 ounces to buy that same house. Interesting, isn't it? In 1971, a car cost 86 ounces of gold. Today, it's 9 ounces. 1971, Harvard cost 63 ounces of gold. Now it's only 11 ounces. 1971, gas, 1 ounce of gold equals 113 gallons. 1 ounce of gold equals 1,736 gallons. If you saved in dollars, your value inflated away to almost nothing. But if you saved in gold, you increased your real-world purchasing power massively. You didn't see inflation. You saw deflation. And you never even had to do so much as sell a stock or learn about bonds and interest rates. All you had to do was save in gold. So think about it. If you had your money in the bank today, and let's say you had $10,000 in your savings account back in 1971, and you didn't add to it whatsoever, and you had the same $10,000 in gold. And remember, gold was worth $41 an ounce. So you'd have 243 ounces of gold. Think about that for a second. So you have 10,000 in cash and you have 243 ounces in your safe in the bank. Today, that cash is 10,000. What can you buy with it? Well, everything else is, since it lost value, you can't purchase, you don't have the same buying power as you did back in 1971. But if you just had that gold in the safe and now it's at $5,000 an ounce, you'd have $1.2 million. That means gold is a hedge against the failing fiat currency. And you could see it very, very clearly with the examples that Bobby Thorne gave, which means you would never, your income, your savings kept up with the falling value of the fiat currency. And you didn't have to do anything. And I think this is a very good example showing everyone the true nature of real money compared to the fake fiat currency where they try to convince you that cash is king. Because they have to do this because, once again, they know the truth. This is why they're not ramping up. And that's why when you look at the central bank, they're not. You don't go in there and say, hey, what's in your safes? Is it gold or is it pieces of paper? It's gold. It's not pieces of paper. Ask a very simple question. Why is that? And investors right now, and Cobesia Literates put this out, investors are still piling into gold funds at a record pace. Gold holdings in the largest physical gold-backed ETF, GLD, are up 34.9 million troy ounces, the highest since May of 2022. Since June 2024, gold holdings in the fund have increased 8 million troy ounces, or 30%. By comparison, the 2020 high and the 2012 peak were 40.9 million and 43.4 million, respectively. Meanwhile, ETFs of gold and other precious metals attracted 4.39 billion in inflows in January, posting their 8th consecutive monthly intake. Furthermore, investors have invested a net 3.62 billion in gold miner ETFs, the most since at least 2009. Demand for gold investments remains robust. Now, I do believe that you should hold the physical. I don't like personally GLD or paper or anything like that because I do believe the central bank system, the deep state players, they use the paper market to manipulate everything. And if you have the physical gold, then you can control. Yes, you can have the physical gold. You can have it stored in safes in other places. You can have others where they hold it, they protect it, or you can have it in your own home in a nice, safe place, of course. But once again, you could see the difference. And you could see that everything that Trump is doing right now, he's making moves to basically remove us from the economic enslavement that we've been put into. And I think Mr. Poole pretty much explains it pretty darn well. Move 1. Sign executive order threatening 25% tariffs on any country trading with Iran. Target, China, India, Turkey, the petrodollar stronghold is ending. Move 2, threaten to sue the Federal Reserve if they don't lower rates. He even was going to sue the nominee. It was a joke? No. It was a warning. The Fed's days are numbered. Move 3, Pentagon cut all ties with Harvard. Military training, fellowships, programs, all gone. The Ivy League pipeline to power is dead. Move 4, launch Trump X. 43 medications, Ozempic included. Big Pharma's monopoly, broken. They charge you $1,000. He's giving it for $300. Actually, I do believe it's going to go even lower than that. Move 5, DHS funding expires February 13th. 6 days from now, controlled shutdown incoming. Why? Because you can't restructure what's still running. Connect the dots. Iran tariffs equals end of petrodollar. Fed threat, end of central bank control. Harvard cut, end of deep state recruitment. Trump RX, end of big pharma monopoly. DHS shutdown, restructuring of Homeland Security. This isn't chaos. This is a demolition. Piece by piece, system by system, pillar by pillar. The old world is being dismantled in real time. And the new one is being built while you watch. And that's absolutely true. This is why he had to create the parallel economic system. It's a system that competes with the central bank system. The system that Trump is building is an income system. It's not a debt system. The central bank is a debt system. And to fund the debt system, to keep it operational, they take the money from your hard labor. They take it internally. So they don't reward you. They penalize you for working. The harder you work, the more you have to pay. The more you make, the more you have to pay. Think about that for a second. Trump is building the income system where he's going to be bringing in income from the outside. And that money is going to benefit the people. So you get all your buying power back. Plus, when we get rid of the central bank, all that buying power comes back. So once again, you can see how everything is about to change. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: record stock market and national security driven by our great tariffs. I am predicting 100,000 on the Dow by the end of my term. Remember, Trump was right about everything. I hope the United States Supreme Court is watching. And yes, part of his plan, he needs the Supreme Court to rule that he has the authority to do all of this. Once that is done, it's game over for the central bank. It's game over for the deep state players. They can't stop them in regards to the tariff system. And you have to remember, why would they be going after the tariff system? Why are they threatened by the tariff system? Because, again, if he's bringing in trillions of dollars into this country, why would anyone want to stop that in this country? Does that make any sense? No. What person would say, hey, we don't like you bringing in trillions of dollars. We don't like you giving dividends to the people. We don't like you using this money to fund the government. Does that make any sense? Who would try to stop this? Well, yes, there might be countries out there that don't want Trump to use tariffs. But what's the other entity? The central bank system. The central bank system, it fears the tariff system because that's an income system, not a debt system. The income system will always win against a debt system. We don't have to borrow from the tariff system. There's no inflation that is caused by the tariff system because Trump is not creating new currency. You see, they kept everyone in the illusion. Inflation happens when more and more currency is put into circulation. It dilutes the currency. That's how it is created. The Federal Reserve is the problem, and Trump is going to be removing the problem. And we're going to be going back to sound money. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.